You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
All right, folks, welcome back. Another episode, A No Seats podcast. Before we get going, we got to talk about Emprise Bank. You can open an account with Emprise Bank in less than 5 minutes. The savings just start there, though. Emprise is a trusted partner with a variety of products and services to help you achieve your goals. Don't be tethered to a brick building. Start a meaningful relationship with a bank that has your best in mind. Shout out Emprise Bank. Let's get to it, boys. I tweeted a little bit about today. The vibes haven't been right. We had our meltdown episode Sunday. We're going to leave that in the past. We're not getting into all that. But I said the March magic isn't there for me right now. I was struggling to find it. But then at work, I printed off a nice crisp paper bracket, and then you start to feel it. You just touch it. You really dig into it. And by the time I got done filling out that bracket, writing in Kansas as national champs, the vibes were back. It's officially first weekend of March Madness Eve. I'm so excited. And we're going to talk bracket today. We're going to talk Hawks today. We're going to talk gambling. We're going to talk our picks. But I want to start with the Hawks. And AB, I actually might start with you on this one. Have you, since Sunday, shifted at all? Like, have you started to find some positives? I think during our Sunday episode, we kind of joked like, let's find some positives. And we all went silent. Like we couldn't even find them. We were that low. Since Sunday, have you started to find some glimmers of hope that maybe this isn't the worst thing in the world?
I have, Ryan. I have indeed. I just started thinking about it. I'm like, how many times do we look at brackets and go like, that's a wagon of a bracket, and it ends up blowing wide open? Now, that could be KU, but we're freaking out right now about potential matchups like a week and a half away. And I just got it in my head. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, we don't know that's going to happen. I'll freak out next Wednesday if we have to play UConn or whoever. But for now, I'm easy going. I'm happy. We got the tournament starting tomorrow. It's all of our favorite times of the year. I'm not going to let a poor bracket draw distract me from the best time of the year, because at the end of the day, it's all hypotheticals, and it's, yeah, they could happen, but until we're certain, I'm just not going to worry about it and enjoy the tournament.
What about you, B-Turn? Your vibes, have you had a vibe check?
Yeah. And I said Sunday, I said as fans, I'm sure we can talk ourselves into KU going on a run and being a little more positive about the draw. I think we could all sit here and complain about the draw. We can complain about the location. I've watched a couple podcasts and a couple bracket, predictions the last few days, and Norlander and those guys kind of talked about our draw. So I think everyone knows it's a tough draw. I think every team in this tournament's good, and there's a lot of teams that are hot going into the tournament, and I'm kind of with AB. Obviously, towards the bottom of the bracket, you only have to worry about one of those teams at the bottom of the bracket, because if you face any of them, it's going to be in the Elite Eight. And hopefully KU gets there. If you get to the Elite Eight, that's a great year, I think. Obviously, KU fans want more. But Gonzaga, UCLA, that's obviously you don't want them in the West, but you're not going to see both of those teams. You might see one of them. I think the 8-9 draw is really tough. We all didn't want to play either team. It's so funny looking back at our takes a few weeks ago about the teams we didn't want to see. I think UConn's tough. I know they're playing in Albany this week. I'm not sure what day they are, but so they have a nice draw. I think UConn, we know how talented they are, but KU, you look back, we talk about how good these teams are. KU's really freaking good too. And hopefully Bill Self's going to be coaching. Kevin McCullough sounds like he's healthy, ready to go. He's been bouncy at practice, they said. So we're as good as anyone. Obviously, we're always going to worry about teams. That's kind of what brackets are all about, where we look at potential matchups. But there's a lot of teams we're talking about that we won't even see. So,
yep. Yeah, and you mentioned kind of the two big questions. Obviously the McCullough news is very positive today. He says back spasms have completely gone away. That's, if true, that's great. But the other thing is that I didn't really feel was good news was that Bill Self hasn't done an interview. He was at practice, but you really haven't seen him much. Wasn't at the live practice. I don't know. I'm starting to, and this is kind of a pointless conversation to have because this pod will come out at 6 a.m. the morning before we tip off at 1 p.m. and we will know the answer of whether or not Bill Self is coaching tomorrow. I'm starting to lean towards he doesn't coach tomorrow, which would kind of lean me towards thinking he doesn't coach at all in the first weekend. Because if you don't go Thursday, do you go Saturday? I mean, we're obviously talking about either way, high pressure tournament. Whatever happened, his 2 stents placed, whatever. It's probably not something that his doctor is crazy about him going out and coaching. So I don't want to speculate. I don't want to get all medical because I know absolutely nothing. I just would say in AB, you mentioned this. It kind of has like an Embiid vibe where we're going into the tournament with the hope of Embiid coming back, hope of Self coming back, but we may have to get through this first weekend without doing it. Like, is that kind of where your mind's at, AB?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt confident when they all said that he was going to coach this week after Saturday and on Sunday. But it's just like, I mean, if he's not fully committed to it now, what's he going to wake up like on Thursday morning to play Howard where they're 22-point favorites and say, you know what, this is it. But you could also argue the other way where tomorrow's game is probably not going to be as stressful. Ease your way back in onto the bench so you're not jumping right back in. And like, all right, now we got to play Arkansas or Illinois. It's probably a 4 or 5 point spread. So maybe he wants to ease into it. But that's kind of why I think if he's not coaching tomorrow, I don't know if he's coaching Saturday.
Yeah. Just go ahead, B-turn.
I'm just saying the funny thing is, even regardless if he isn't coaching, he's going to be sitting there watching, and we're going to be up 30-35, and someone's going to get beat backdoor like Joe or Bobby, and he's going to be fuming inside. So I'm sure those games still get him fired up, especially defensively. So, yeah, I don't know. I personally I know it kind of seems far-fetched and a little crazy, but in Kansas City, I was talking to like former players that were saying they wouldn't be shocked if he coached in the Big 12 tournament. Like after that happened on Wednesday night and how he wanted to coach. And obviously that's him. He's a competitor. So I thought he would have been all in. Obviously he wants to. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I thought he'd be coaching by Thursday or Friday, whichever day we were going to play. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if he can't coach tomorrow, then what does, I guess, 1 or 2 days do for him?
That's kind of where I'm at. So like that's where you get to the Embiid type part of this. And I remember that tournament we were all scared of. We were scared of New Mexico, right? Like they were the really good team. They had a good season. They had some good players. And it was just like, just get past New Mexico, get to the Sweet 16, you get Embiid back, this team's making a run. But we couldn't even get past Stanford, who stunk out loud. And obviously this is a very different situation. Coaching versus a player of Embiid's caliber is different. We still made the Big 12 title game without Bill. I think Bill's got this thing running like such a well-oiled machine. I think we could make the second weekend without him sitting on that bench. But it's just crazy how much this season and this storyline has changed. Like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, I would have thought this was all about us repeating. And now we've got these other little things, the selection committee stuff, Bill's health, McCullers' health. Like, it's just kind of crazy how quickly March can turn. And now I'm at the point where it's like, sit back, relax. Thank God we won the NCAA championship last year, because can you imagine how much this would suck if we lose last year and we're sitting here praying Bill's able to go and that this team can somehow make a run. I don't know. I'm trying to stay positive about it. So I don't know. Where do you guys want to start? I feel like I'm at this point just rambling. Where do you want to start with this? Do you want to talk KU's draw? Is there anything that you have, AB, have you been in the lab and found a route that you just love for the Hawks? B-turn?
I've got one thing, and I want to get this out of the way early because I know we're not talking about the negatives in the draw. Can I just ask if Houston got as screwed as we did? Like, are we looking at a scenario where both teams Auburn? Are pissed off? I'm talking Auburn. They're going to play a road game in the second round as the number 2 overall seed. It is absolutely bananas. And I would be way more upset at that than I think I was. Now, obviously, Auburn has to win. It's
from Auburn.
I heard someone say a 30-minute drive today. I don't know if that was being like.
And they're known for their atmospheres at home.
Yeah, and they've beaten really good teams too. Or they almost beat Alabama at home. If they bring people,
they win a game in the tournament, that's going to even get that fan base motivated even more. So like, yeah, that I was the same way. I started looking at that today after I got over all the Houston stuff and was like, damn, that's like sneaky made me want to take Auburn in the bracket.
Because I'm not sure what they would have done with the 8-9s, but if we get the Midwest, do you think Iowa still would have been in the 8-9 game, and then that would have been in Des Moines?
Probably.
See, that was a fear of mine, but like if we just switch KU and Houston right now and nothing else changes, maybe Texas and UCLA too, since to go with bracket rules. Like I think everybody would be more happy with that than it currently is.
I agree with the Houston thing. I'm playing Auburn. I kind of wanted to just touch on our region as a whole. We know how good it is. I've personally cooled on it. I know it's really good. I'm not going to say it's not good. It's easily the best region, but I've kind of relaxed a little bit on the Arkansas thing. I know I've praised them for a couple weeks. They've been super inconsistent. They've lost 13 games. They have a ton of talent, and they still got to play Illinois. That's a 2-point spread. Obviously, we know last year we wanted to play Creighton. We get Creighton, nearly lose. We didn't want San Diego State. So we've seen crazier things. I really think UConn has their hands full on Friday against Iona. It's going to be a short trip for both fan bases. I'm not sure how Iona fans show out, but I think this Iona team can give them problems. Obviously, Rick Pitino's coaching them. They have two really good guards, and they have a big man that I think can spell Sonogo a little bit, which is a name that Anthony Bax below me is just going to love. Nelly Jr. Joseph. He's 6'9", 240 or something. Nelly Jr. Joseph, and then they have Walter Clayton as a guard. He's averaging
Walter
17.
Clayton's great too. It's a great name. 17
a game, 46% from the floor, 43% from three. And then they got Dennis Jenkins. He's averaging 16, 4, and 5. He's 36% three-point shooter. Walter Clayton's a 95% free throw shooter. So he can shoot it.
Just to recap, did you say we've got a Nelly Jr. Joseph? And a Walter Clayton. And what was the last guy you just said? I felt like that kind of snuck under the radar.
I think it's Dennis Jenkins, Daniss. But so those two guards are averaging 17 and 16. Nelly Jr. Joseph, I can't wait to watch that game, hopefully with AB, but he's averaging 15 and 9. And Sonogo's a beast. Like, he's good. He can finish, and then he can capitalize at the free throw line, but he's not like a crazy elite rebounder, which I think could scare us because I think teams were killing us on the offensive boards a little bit in KC. He averages like 7 rebounds a game. I know we're looking down the road here, but I'm just talking about our region in general. Just UConn, obviously they're going to have to win 2 games. We're going to have to win 2 games for that matchup. But I think Iona is a tough matchup for them. I think it's a 9-point spread. I'm going to take Iona +9. I think they could win that game. And then if we, like, say we face a St. Mary's, obviously they've been good for a long time. They're really good defensively. That's another thing about this region that really scares me is how good this entire region pretty much is defensively. But I think St. Mary's, obviously, I think they'll have nights where they struggle to score. So I don't know. I was looking at our region, just teams defensively on KenPom. You got UCLA number 1, KU 7, St. Mary's 8. You got UConn 18th, Arkansas 15th, Boise 14th, VCU 17th, Northwestern 13th. So you got
and then Gonzaga,
9 teams. Yeah, so they're like the polar opposite of everyone, but you got 9 teams in the top 20 defensively on KenPom. 9 of the top 20 teams defensively are in the West region, and kind of scares me because we've talked about it. KU has had some stinkers offensively. Even dating back to senior night against Texas Tech, they weren't very good. At Iowa State, we scored like 30 points, and then Texas in the Big 12 championship was awful, and at Texas also. So tough defenses obviously scare me a little bit.
Can I ask you guys something about UConn? I don't know a ton about them, but thing that gave me a little hope, doesn't sound like they really have a true point guard.
Nope.
When I picture that, I picture DeJuan picking up a guy that maybe isn't the most comfortable with the ball in his hand. Like that, that's where I think we all of a sudden have a secret weapon of DeJuan picking up a guy that's not a point guard, not a true point guard, and just disrupting the complete flow of their offense. So, those are the things that after you have the little meltdown we had Sunday, you start to think about and say, okay, Danny Hurley's never won a freaking NCAA tournament game. They don't have a point guard. Regardless of where they're at KenPom wise, they haven't been – they've underachieved. I mean, ever since they got really hot at the beginning of the year, they've been flat out average since then. Like, they're a 4 seed for a reason. They weren't one of the top 10 teams in the country all year. So, I don't know. The UConn thing, and AB, you've probably taken in more stuff, but, like, I feel like you kind of compared it to Iowa. Most people are picking UConn over us, aren't they?
Yeah, UConn, I feel – and maybe it's, like, selective listening, and I'm only hearing and seeing what I want to, like, make my point as, but I do feel like a lot of people have taken UConn not only to like beat us, but to go to a Final Four. I've seen some people have them winning it all. Like, yeah, whenever we've talked about it a million times, when that kind of stuff happens, it just doesn't always seem to pan out the way people think it does. So I don't know if it's Iona. I don't know if it's St. Mary's. I don't know if it's VCU. And it might be us losing. I don't know. But UConn's been very popular, and that would be some of the reason I'm kind of gaining a little confidence in that matchup at least. But again, we got to get there first.
I think that's a team that has just scared us for a couple of weeks and maybe a month or so. Not really scare us, but that's a team we obviously talked about. We don't want to see them as our 4 or 5. And there was a span this year where obviously they were the number 1 team in the country. I think that was everyone's title contender there for a little bit, but throughout the year, I don't think obviously it's been wide open. I don't think anyone's been an overwhelming favorite to win it all, even though people in Vegas think Houston is the best college basketball team ever assembled, apparently, just according to odds and stuff. But yeah, I think UConn's just a team that has scared us personally. And then the metrics, obviously, they're 4th best team on KenPom. They're the 6th ranked offense. So I think that's a team that can get hot. They've won like 9 of 11. And I'm not going to act like I know a ton about Iona. I know I just talked about old Nelly Jr. Joseph, but listening to pods and people talk about that region, they said kind of the same thing about UConn, where they don't have a true ball handler, and Iona's guards really like to get up and pressure and get in other guards. So I think that it could be tough. I think it could be a tough matchup for Connecticut, but it's going to be in Albany, New York. So we've seen brackets break our way. We choked, and we've seen it go the other way where we play really good teams. I feel like when we play really good teams in the tournament, for some reason we step up, kind of like we beat UNC and then we beat Duke in that Elite 8. So teams we don't want to play, like we were terrified of Duke. It
would be so funny if UConn got upset just like Iowa did last year. But let's jump real quick break. We'll come back and talk about the rest of the bracket. All right, so we've covered the West region, or we may have some more thoughts on that here a little later, but I don't want to talk too much about it because it's all going to blow up here in a little bit, right? The West region, as we've said, could look way different. So let's go through it. Let's start with the South. Let's start up there in that region, or at least, I don't know. Let's talk about what we like upset-wise. Do you have any sleepers that you have coming out? Are there any locks gambling-wise that you absolutely love up in that region? AB, I'll starting with you.
All right, I've got a few upsets in this one. We're starting with the South only.
Yep, that's
beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll take Furman over Virginia.
Trendy one.
It is, and that does scare me a little bit. I've been kind of back and forth in my mind, but I'm going to stick with it. Virginia is just not very good. They're not very good, and they don't have like a wide margin of error. Like it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be a 1-2 possession game most of the game, probably just on how they play. If it just makes it in my mind easier to slip up, because if you're down 5, that feels like you're down 15 in a normal game. So I kind of like Furman. I know I like Virginia a lot based on the history of the show, but Furman just, I don't know. This first one I saw, I was like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to go with. I don't care how trendy it is.
Yeah, it's I simply didn't pick it because my gut told me to, which my gut's normally wrong. And I just feel like it's become too trendy, but Virginia just stinks. Like I truly think Alabama is sleepwalking to an Elite 8. I just don't see the way San Diego State, Virginia, West Virginia, I've got beating Maryland. I don't know how well West Virginia, I mean, we handled West Virginia pretty easily in the Big 12 tournament. I wasn't exactly overly impressed with them. This region is kind of boring to me. The one thing I can't decide what to do, and AB, you're going to crush me for this. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. B-turn. Creighton Baylor. I'm a guy that says always go with the guards. Now, I think Creighton's got good guards. I think Baylor might have. Like, if I'm sitting here thinking of a team that could go on a crazy run and we look back and say, well, that kind of makes sense. They have Cryer and Flagler, and, like, that's what guards do in March. So, but I also think back to Creighton and how much hype there was, and AB and I have made jokes about this all year, that I can't stop falling in love with Creighton, and I don't know who to pick. I don't know who to pick in Creighton.
Yeah,
Baylor.
I mean, Creighton, obviously, they got a bunch of star power, so does Baylor. And I think Baylor, not a lot of people are talking about them right now, and I think it's because how they ended the year. They obviously got smoked by Oklahoma, and then they lost. They lost in the first game of the Big 12 tournament, so I feel like people aren't too excited, but that feels like a team that just if they get hot, and we know it's all about guard play with Cryer, Flagler, and Keontae George, so they could get hot. I mean, Creighton's starting five is really good. Nembhard, Shireman, Kaluma, Kalkbrenner, Trey Alexander, like that would be such a fun matchup, and that's one of the matchups, honestly, in that region that I really like is NC State. And Creighton in the first round. It feels like a lot of people are picking Creighton. I think AB saw that coming with Creighton. That just feels like a team people are going to pick because people know they can get hot. They have the talent to do it. I feel like they're not very deep. NC State, I love their duo of guards. I don't know if you guys have watched them much. I was tempted. I don't know if you guys have watched them much. And Terquavion Smith is electric, but he takes some questionable shots. And then Jarkel Joyner he's so good. I love watching those two play. And Casey Morcell, 40% 3-point shooter. They got DJ Burns, who is kind of like built like Anthony Bax, just a lefty tank, just can finish, hit the mid-range. I think NC State could easily beat them for sure. I think it's a 5-point spread, but I think there's probably a lot of people looking ahead, I guess I'm trying to say, to Creighton and Baylor. I think NC State gives them a game. Those guards can get hot. That's what March is all about. I love the Mizzou-Utah State matchup. It's a lot of juniors, seniors, upperclassmen. Both are top 13 adjusted offense on KenPom. And Utah State's a top 20 team on KenPom. So they both play decently fast, both top 110 in tempo. I think the over-under's around 155.
I've got the Aggies, by the way.
It's going to be a fun game.
I have Utah State for sure. 155 is high, I think, especially for March, because Mizzou definitely doesn't play defense. We've seen that. But obviously March, guys are going to buckle down in a single elimination tournament and defend a little bit. So I don't know if I like that over. But for me, just filling out this bracket, it's been a little chalky for me so far. It's been Arizona, Alabama every single time in the Elite Eight. I've loved Arizona all year. You guys make me love them more. So I think Arizona easily is capable of winning it all. I know that doesn't sound crazy because they're a 2 seed, but for some reason, I don't picture Bama in the Final Four. And I think Arizona is going to get out of the South.
I want to touch on something you started with there. I've got NC State in the Sweet 16, boys. I really do.
I mean, guards, we say it every year.
Two can go, man.
I think part of it is that I've been so out on Creighton all year long that I just had it in my mind I was going to fade them once the tournament came. And then Baylor, to me, is just like, they don't guard well enough. I know they can get hot, and it's dangerous to pick against them because I wouldn't be surprised to see them go to the Final Four, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see them lose like tomorrow or Friday whenever they play. So, I don't know. I just looked for value there. I felt like NC State wasn't getting a lot of credit, and people were looking ahead to Baylor and Creighton, which would be an awesome game.
Mm-hmm. People want that.
Yeah. So,
but I mean,
what were we gonna say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm with B-turn on the this is very chalky for me. Yeah. This is the most chalky region, I think. Is that how it was for you, AB?
I mean, other than NC State going to the Sweet 16, I had Bama, San Diego State, and Arizona, with Alabama, Arizona in the Elite Eight. So I think most people are ending up there, which is kind of scary. But
I just really want to see. I really want to see Arizona Bama. I think that would be a very fun game. bunch of athletes, bunch of good players.
Man.
And I got Zona. I love Zona. I got the future on them. I'm riding the Wildcats for as long as I can. But yeah, this region, I think Baylor, Arizona would be very fun. And I think whoever wins that game will be very fun against Bama. Other than that, meh. This region doesn't have me all that excited.
I wanted to touch on Virginia Furman just for a second. I just love betting against Virginia. No matter who they're playing, I don't care who it is. I know they can go on a stretch like of 5 or 6 minutes where they don't score. I know Furman's not very good defensively, but they got 2 studs. Mike Bothwell is so good. Jalen Slauson, big man, and he can shoot it. Bothwell's, dude, I don't know if you guys have watched him play much, lefty for Furman, but he can play.
Not once.
Dude, I'm telling you, he can. Mike Bothwell. Remember his name.
It sounds like you have like a lisp when you're saying his last name.
Mike
I know
Bothwell.
you don't.
Bothwell.
I can see that being a name like Bothwell banks in the 3. Virginia goes down. Yeah, I mean, Virginia is just so boring, man. If I were a Virginia fan, I would be at the point where it's like, okay, we got our natty, but like at what point? I don't know. I've always said winning games is fun, but they've reached this point where they're just kind of average now, and that's where it gets miserable to be a Virginia fan. You're always going to be a 4 seed, and then you're always going to be worried about beating Furman in the first round. Like, I feel like that's their future.
And also, I want to ask, do you think Furman over Virginia is a trendy pick just because of how Virginia plays and people don't trust them?
Yes.
Partially, yeah. I also just think Virginia kind of, people think they stink, and I mean, they kind of do. They're what, like 40th in KenPom? Like,
didn't they lose in the first round in 2021 to a 13, like to Ohio, I think? So,
yeah, that sounds right.
For something like that. They definitely lost in the first round. So, like, Virginia's been upset before. I don't know. I don't talk about snooze fest. If we talk any more about Virginia, I will literally shut this pod off.
Next region.
All right. Are we going? Do you guys go down? Do you go down to the east, or do you go?
I go down.
I go down. I go down too.
I'm very intrigued about your guys' takes on the east because
I love this bracket.
Yeah,
I hate it. I mean, I love it, but I hate it because I truly have no idea. I don't like a single one of these teams to make the Final Four. I have a couple rules in life. Don't pick Purdue to a Final Four. I've made it very clear to myself after picking Tennessee to the Final Four last year that I'll never do it again until they prove me wrong. I don't believe in Kentucky. I don't believe in Kansas State. I think Marquette's a little fraudulent. I can't, and Duke is the most trendy Final Four pick of all time. I can't decide who I want or think will make the Final Four in this bracket. I've got some picks and upsets I like here, but I don't know who to. I mean, what's your thought on it, AB?
There's one team you didn't name, and that's who's going to be the representative. February is boys. He's so due for a run. He is so due. I went back and looked so he made the Final Four in 2015, right?
And 19.
Right, and 19. But other than 2016 to now, the only time he's made it to the second weekend was when he made the Final Four in 2019. He lost to Middle Tennessee State as the 215 in 2016. He lost us in 2017. I can't remember 18 off the top of my head. 20 no tournament. 21, I think, lost early. And last year, I don't even remember, but I knew they didn't go for a second round. Oh, they lost to Duke in the second round. That's right.
Yeah, that was a good game.
Yeah, but the bracket feels like it's anybody's to grab. There's some crazy stat where almost every year a 7 seed or higher makes the Final Four. So
that is nuts.
If I'm looking for a weak bracket of I don't trust any of these teams, like you said. So I'll take the guy that I know I give him a lot of shit, but fact of the matter is he makes a lot of Final Fours. It's a dark horse, Michigan State. Why not?
Obviously, it was tempting, but you also laid out that January, February Izzo is kind of a fraud. I mean, he's been 2 Final Fours since 2015. I guess that's the same for Bill Self, but Bill Self's won a natty. He's made multiple Elite Eights. Izzo just, I'm over that. And I was they got shit pumped by Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. I'm just I'll tell you what, this isn't going to happen, but if I were a K-State fan, if you were going to make a run, this is the bracket you wanted. Other than I have Kentucky beating them just because I think Kentucky athletically will cause problems, but Kentucky stinks too. That's the problem. I don't know. I'll get to some of my picks, but what do you have real quick, B-Turn?
I wanted to touch on K-State first. I feel like I've watched some stuff on YouTube where I've seen some respected college basketball guys pick K-State to get out of the region or at least go to like the Elite Eight or something. And I think the bracket could definitely break that way. I feel like we look at K-State differently just because maybe we have a little something against them. Nothing. I mean, it's not like I hate them, but I think they rely on two guys, obviously, Keontae Johnson, Marquise Noel. So they just scare me a little bit. I feel like that's a team that, yeah, they could go on a run, but they could maybe lose to like a Montana State. I'm not saying they're going to.
That line would have me a little nervous if I were K-State.
So, and I don't know if it's the Big East tournament or what, but I think people are just, no one's really talking about Marquette. And I don't know if it's a Shaka Smart thing. I know they don't have like any crazy true pro prospects, but they don't really have a bad loss. And I think Marquette's obviously been super consistent. They have the 7th best offense on Ken Palm. A lot of their they went to Purdue. They lost by 5 at Purdue, who's in their region. They barely lost to Wisconsin. They lost to Providence in double overtime, at Xavier by 4. So they have a lot of close losses. So I personally am not taking Marquette to the Final Four in any of my brackets. And I feel like it's like a Shaka Smart thing because I don't know a ton about them and no one else is really picking them. But my take, and I don't think it's a hot take, I don't think Purdue makes the second weekend. And I think
me neither.
At first, my take was Purdue's the number 4 1 seed. Why did they get a better draw than us? I think their draw is pretty tough for them, especially in the second round. AB, I don't know if you think this is crazy, but I'm debating on sprinkling both Memphis and Florida Atlantic to make the Sweet 16.
I'm kind of glad you included Florida Atlantic because I feel like everyone's looking ahead to the Purdue-Memphis matchup, and Florida Atlantic
might be a conference tournament thing too.
Yeah, I mean, Florida Atlantic won 31 games this year. They're pretty damn good. I mean, I just think I don't even remember what you asked me. Oh, the Sweet 16 for both of them. Yeah, because I'm so down on Purdue and their guard play is not good. It's Zach Edey and just pieces, and it worked. It was awesome until like January, and then they've kind of started like crumbling apart little by little, and I just don't really trust them to make a run. Plus, it's Purdue in March; they never go far.
And Purdue is one bad a ref show away from their season being like. Edey will have a game in March, and if it's a second round game, they're losing that game. That if he gets 2-3 quick fouls, which he could, because it's tough to officiate a guy that big. But yeah, B-Turn, I'm with you. I have Memphis beating Purdue, which I know goes against everything where I said I'm going against trendy. But like Memphis, we watched them against Houston when Sasser was healthy. They lost on a buzzer beater. And then I know Sasser wasn't healthy in the title game, but they killed Houston. Like it wasn't even a game.
They played at Alabama this year too, and they only lost by 3.
Memphis
is just they're tough. Purdue is like they're young. Purdue's got 2 freshman guards. Like I think Memphis could bully Purdue around, and if they have a good game plan for Edey, I think Memphis is going to beat Purdue. I want to give my like most passionate bet. The bet that I am so excited to do, and it's not that groundbreaking, but like I am hammering Oral Roberts. Hammering.
Spread?
Spread and sprinkling money line.
You talk about guard play. High.
Yeah, me too. I think I got it at 6.5. Oral AB, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say is Oral Roberts really gonna make 2 runs of 3 years, right? Is that what you were going to say?
Well, I've said that before too, but then Duke became the trendiest team in the history of the NCAA tournament, so I'm really torn on this one, boys.
Because you got me thinking. I think you mentioned that to me the other day, but you think back, Loyola Chicago made 2 runs in March, separate teams, 2 years apart.
Middle
Tennessee State. There's another one I had, but I lost it. But either way, I love Oral Roberts. They've got the guard play. Didn't even know this. They have a 7'5" guy too. And here's the thing about Duke.
Victor Wembanyama.
Not only are they the trendy team, but they're young. And Oral Roberts is old. And Duke's feeling themselves a little bit. when that game gets pressure, when Oral Roberts gets out to a 19-12 lead and Shire burns the second time out of the first half, that team's going to start to crumble. That crowd's going to turn on Duke, and Oral Roberts is going to win this game. I actually have considered Oral Roberts going to the Sweet 16 just because I hate Tennessee. But I don't know. I love that matchup for Oral Roberts. I'm excited for that game.
One other one, we talked about Kentucky a little bit too. I got Providence over Kentucky because I don't think Kentucky, they've just lost so many games to bad teams, and they look so, I know they have a lot of talent and they put it together sometimes. I'm not going to trust it. But Ryan, you put this in my brain. Is K-State really going to eliminate Kentucky twice in like 5 years?
That's one of my can you picture it's I have for you boys today.
Yeah. So it's I figured Providence, why not? I mean, who knows?
And obviously Providence leading scorer Bryce Hopkins, Kentucky transfer. How much pressure is on Coach Cal? He lost to a 15 seed. He lost to a 15 seed last year in the first round. If he loses again this year, there's going to be some heat on him. There already has been. I know they're a 6 versus 11, so that's obviously going to be a good game, but that's definitely a matchup that intrigues me. I've heard a lot of people talking about just the ACC in general, how they're going to kind of fade them in the tournament just because it's been a little weak this year. I personally, I have Duke in the Final Four.
Oh, you sucker.
And listening to that with people talking about the ACC has me wondering. I just think we talked about it when we were in Kansas City, right? Just how they've found something. They have the talent. Phil Opowski has been on a mission. Jeremy Roach, obviously their point guard, he played in the Final Four last year. They almost made it to the title game. They have obviously some talented freshmen, Proctor. They got some guys off the bench, Grandison, Ryan Young, some vets. So I think they have a little bit of everything. I don't know if Shire has it in him. Obviously, it's his first year. Duke trusted him enough to hire him. I just think the bracket's so open that you can come up with – I guarantee there's people that have a Kentucky-Duke Elite Eight. I guarantee it.
Hannah does. That's what she's got. She loves it.
I can't picture
that. Yeah, so, all right, let's take one last quick break, and we'll come back. We can maybe finish up the East, but, yeah, quick break. All right, so we'll move on here from the bracket, but this K-State Kentucky talk has me thinking. I came up with a little parlay last night that I'm going to call For the Vibes parlay. It's a simple parlay that you just do for vibes, and here it is. You take K-State money line, you take Kentucky money line, and you take Arkansas money line. Here's my thinking behind it. If Arkansas loses, I'm happy because I really think Arkansas is a nightmare matchup for KU. I will be excited for us to play Illinois if Arkansas loses. If Kentucky loses, as B-Turn said, such a pressure-packed game for Calipari, it would be full meltdown. Not only would they lose to Providence, they would lose to a guy that will be the best player on the floor that couldn't get minutes on their team last year. Like, it would have been like Charlie Moore eliminating us in the first round last year. So that would be hilarious. And K-State money line, obviously, if they lose, an all-time moment, we will laugh. I will be glad to lose that whatever $50. I think it's $50 to win like 180 or something like that. 182, 172, something like that. Sprinkle it on there for the vibes. Either way, you're chuckling, you're happy, or you've made $170. So I'm riding it. AB, I think you're going to come join me. Do you like the thinking?
So I like it because of the thought process. The only reason I don't like it is because I think Providence might win. But again, then it's just funny. But I think that's the one that I would care about the least. Providence, Kentucky, because I know I hate Kentucky, and it would get jokes off for sure. But
the problem is how you can't get much more jokes off than we already been able to. That's the one regret I had is it's like, oh, that'll be funny, but my God, they lost to St. Peter's last year. So
it'll just heat up the seat for Cal.
Yeah. So that's really all I got on the East. I think at the end of the day, I'm probably just going to pick Marquette because I think people have disrespected them a little bit. If Marquette was Villanova and they won the conference and they won the tournament, they'd be the favorite to win this entire tournament. It's just because, like B-Turn said, it's Shaka Smart, who's a dork. It's Tyler Kolek, who's got floppy hair. He's a white guy nobody had ever heard about. And I don't know. But if Marquette's name was Villanova, they would be one of the favorites to win this tournament. But like we all said, that region sucks, and I hate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about my Memphis, Florida Atlantic thing real quick, just because obviously you're going to lose one of those no matter what. But Memphis to make the Sweet 16 is 4-1 and FAU 6-1. So you could just sprinkle both and hope Purdue. And if you feel confident in Purdue losing the first weekend, you're going to hit one of them. But
you're basically doing that. Well, I was going to say you're kind of getting the money line at like plus 400 or plus 600 for the second round against Purdue, which I don't think it'll be that big. But that logic kind of goes out the window when you'd also be guaranteed a loss for one of them. But still, I like the idea of it because I don't think any of us
probably better than just straight money line still, I would think.
Yeah. Because what it'll be like 250?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, all right, let's get over to the Midwest. I'll just come right out and say I love Houston minus 19 over Northern Kentucky. Houston's used to playing really shitty teams. They're going to play real slow. They're going to
they're competitive though.
And who knows, maybe they've kind of heard that like people like us and KU fans saying they didn't deserve to have the number. I just feel like Houston's going to pour it on Northern Kentucky. I'll take Houston. But that second round matchup, Auburn-Houston is an interesting one. Is there anything here that stands out to you guys besides that game?
Yeah, I've got chaos in the top half of that region. Absolute chaos, boys.
Love that.
So the second round, I guess Houston, Auburn, Drake versus Kent State. I like both 12 and 13 stop set there. Leads me to my following point. I've got Auburn in the Elite Eight, boys. I've got Auburn in the Elite Eight. I know.
I feel like this whole time we've just almost assumed that Auburn's going to win, and it feels like I'm sure a lot of people are thinking that too. Just because it's in Birmingham. Iowa obviously can score. They play fast. They don't defend. I'm not going to just guarantee Auburn wins, but I think you're onto something for sure, AB. And I mean, metrics wise, Auburn, they're top 30 team. They're pretty good defensively. They have some talent. So I think they could definitely give Houston issues. I think the biggest storyline by far in this region is Marcus Sasser. And I don't know if people think or know how serious the injury is. I'm not really sure. Obviously, he doesn't need to play. Do they play tomorrow or Friday?
Not sure.
They play tomorrow. They play tomorrow. So they said a couple hours ago, they said he's a game time decision. It's a groin issue. And I think that's something that could definitely be re-aggravated. Marcus Sasser, one of the best, toughest guards in the country, on arguably the best team in the country. They're definitely better than KU, I would say. Their resume is definitely better than KU's. But Marcus Sasser, his groin, I think that could be an issue. I guess we'll just have to stay tuned to that. And then I think it's so wide open. I've seen a lot of trendy picks on Texas A&M over Texas in the second round. I think a lot of people are going to be picking Texas. They definitely have the talent. They're just coming off a conference tournament win against the best conference in the country. So, and Xavier, I think it's an injury-riddled region. I mean, Fremantle, he's done for the year. Timmy Allen, I'm not sure what's going on with him for Texas. He's pretty important. He's not one of their most important guys, but that's three pretty big injuries to the three top teams in the region. I like the Auburn pick. I could see like a Miami getting really hot. They got guys that can score. Isaiah Wong, we saw it last year. Nigel Pack. They got a couple other guys that can score. So they don't defend. I think Drake, they're well coached. They got some guys. I think Kent State does beat Indiana. So, and I feel like there's regions where we see 12 play the 13 a good amount every year. Like in one region, we'll see a 12 play a 13 in the second round.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how I feel about Miami. They can score, but they don't defend.
They don't want you to pick them. Did you guys see that video this morning? It's kind of sick.
No, I didn't.
They put out like a hype video, and it went like back and forth between highlights and then players and Larinaga, and they said, like, name something they're really good at. Like, we've got the most underrated player in the country, but don't pick us. Like, we don't want you to pick us. If you weren't with us before the season, don't be with us now. Like, we went to the Elite Eight last year, but don't pick us this year. It's kind of sick.
They do have guards, and old Larinaga has done it before.
My boy.
Yeah, I don't know. I went fairly chalk. I don't love this as I'm looking at it. Like, Iowa State I have in the Sweet 16 because of the Xavier issues, but I kind of also think Pitt, even though Pitt looked horrible last night, that was the worst basketball game I've ever watched. There's always a team that makes the Sweet 16 from the 11 play-in game. I could see it being Pitt just because Iowa State, they're so weird. They've looked awful. But I have Houston, Texas in the Elite Eight, and I don't know.
Texans,
I think that
good football team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
That's the thing with me. If Marcus Sasser's healthy, for some reason I feel like people are down on Houston, and that might be because they're in the American. I just feel like I guess KU fans more so don't think Houston's that good. I think if Marcus Sasser's healthy, they're gonna cruise to the Elite Eight, maybe play a Texas team. I just think Houston's gonna get out of this region if they have a healthy Marcus Sasser.
I think Houston's really good. It was just more about what they had done. But I think Houston's making the Final Four. I think Houston, if you truly put a gun to my head and said pick a team, I'd probably pick Houston to win it all. But that's obviously all hinges on Sasser. If he's hurt at all, not 100%, they are very possibly losing in that second round to Auburn or Iowa.
Who do you guys have in the Final Four? You both have Houston?
Yes,
I'm
banking on Sasser being healthy. I just have a tough time picking Texas. I don't know if they can stay this hot. You
I
go
have
through
Texas,
a gauntlet in
but
the Big 12 tournament, and then you got to win 4 in a row here. I know maybe they have a nice little draw at the bottom of the bracket without Fremantle. I still think Xavier can make some noise. They can they can score. We've never really seen. Maybe Sean Miller's do too.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have Texas going to the Final Four, but I absolutely hate it. They haven't been to the second weekend since 2008 or something crazy.
And here's a can you picture it, is Rodney Terry winning the Big 12 title and making a Final Four as an interim coach?
No, so I do have a question on him. When do they just decide they're going to hire him? Is that,
I don't know.
It sounds like they want to go big, right? Because so what I keep thinking about, and I thought about this earlier when we were talking Kentucky. What if Kentucky has a disappointing tournament? Say they lose to Providence first round, and Texas drops a bag for Cal to get him to come over, and Kentucky's fine because they probably want to get rid of him without having to pay him all the money. And what's Rodney Terry think in that situation? You're hiring a guy that hasn't had tournament success in however long. I can't remember the last time. What was it? 17 they lost in the Elite Eight to UNC. Did they have anything more recent than that?
To Auburn in they lost in the Elite Eight to Auburn in 2019.
And KC. Yeah. But yeah, still no Final Four since 2015 when they had that. I mean, that's almost a decade ago.
They haven't won a tournament game since 2019.
Yeah. Rodney Terry is low-key wins the Big 12 tournament. If he goes on a run, I know he doesn't have a lot of experience at this level before this year, but I would be so offended if they went with a guy that hasn't been that good, but he's a big name over me who's proven that he can win with this team. Now there's more to it.
Terry he'd probably leave and get another job. It'll be interesting to see what Texas does. I think it's going to obviously, if he makes the Sweet 16 or an Elite 8, you have to give him at least another year, especially, I don't know how much they have returning, but we'll
Texas
see.
wants to make a splash. They're going to the SEC next year.
God, but the splashes don't work for them.
I know.
But Beard was going to
keep doing it, though.
Yeah. I have one bet I really like in this region, and it's Texas A&M -3 because Penn State's coach was just asked, are you going to be the head coach at Penn State next year? And he said, I don't know, because he's likely going to Georgetown. So they're done. So his foot's out the door.
I didn't bring this up because I have my bracket on the second round, and I just see upsets winning. Don't sleep on Colgate, boys. Don't sleep on Colgate. Just saying. Maybe not win.
You just talked about close. Rodney Terry getting the job.
Right. But so my thought is here, Texas versus Texas A&M in a second round just feels too storybook. Now they're both pretty decent favorites. I don't really like Penn State. I think it's the perfect example of fade the team that was not very good in the regular season. They got hot and popular in conference tournament, and then they come to the NCAA tournament. It's back to reality. Right. Yeah. So, but I don't know. Texas A&M is one of those. It would be really cool, but I'm not sure I can see it happening. Yeah. Maybe I can. I don't know.
I would love it because we said this, or I think I sent a screenshot to the group, and I don't – B-Turn, you might know this. A 16 to the DraftKings is offering a bet straight off the board that just says, will a 16 seed beat a 1 seed? Yes is plus 700. That seems crazy to me. That scares me as a KU fan. It would scare me if I were a Purdue fan. That I don't know what that normally is, but I can't imagine that number is normally plus 700, which makes me think the 15 seed is, what was that? I didn't even look.
I mean, 7-1 is just terrible value. The 15 seed's crazy to me. That thing, there's only been 10 15s to beat a 2 ever. Obviously, the last 2 years, you have Oral Roberts and St. Peter's. It's only, Yes is only plus 190 for a 15 seed, which seems crazy.
Crazy, dude.
Like
Like
no
it's almost
is
like, do you just
crazy.
lay the juice on no? What is it?
That's
like
what I was saying.
275?
That's what I was going to ask you guys. Like, there's obviously millionaires out there that they hammer bets that are juicy just because they have the money to do it and they can win a ton. If you're rich like that, do you take no at minus 235 and just lay a ton of money to win? And also, AB, you're the mid-major guy. I think you look at that stuff. You look at the higher seeds. What 15 seed intrigues you the most? I know you said Colgate, Rye. I want to ask you too, but I've seen some people talking about UCLA. I've been betting against them a lot lately, ever since Jalen Clark left. So I think UCLA, at some point they're going to struggle without him because he's so good defensively. I know they still have Jaime, they still have Tiger Campbell, so they're still good. I know Adam Bona is hurt too, and I wish we would have got him. We recruited him. Dick and Bona would have been electric, but he's question marks there. I'm not sure what's going on, but I know it's a 17-point spread, so it's not likely, but I've seen some people say UNC Asheville could be a little sneaky there for the Bruins.
I personally don't think any happened this year. It's just happened far too often lately. So I don't know if
Was it not?
It's probably Colgate.
Vermont. Vermont's like plus 10 against Marquette, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong on that?
I think Marquette kind of lays it to them.
I kind of do too, but
that's a weird line.
I mean,
man.
if you are a 2 seed, a fan of a 2 seed, you have to look at that number and be absolutely terrified. Minus 235 is yes or is no. That's blowing my mind. I would love to know the history on that bet. But breaking news, boys.
Arizona
State's up by 30 in the first
I was gonna bring that up. It blew my
I'll
dick
take
off.
them to the Sweet 16. The Mountain West is such a joke, dude. The Mountain West never performs in this tournament.
Not so fast. I just want to pull up one thing. So you said that Vermont was a 10-point underdog against Marquette as a 15 versus 2. I just looked back to January at Allen Fieldhouse when the TCU Horned Frogs were 7.5-point underdogs at KU. So imagine obviously they're not going to lose by 23 points, but it's like similar line, and that's a game between like two top 15 teams, and you got to deal with that. Just kind of,
like I said, they've been hot. They've kind of getting disrespected, but do they also have the vibe of the team that got really hot and kind of peaked early, take their foot off the gas, and get just punched in the mouth by a pesky little 15 seed? I don't know. We might have to. Here's the problem with laying money on no is then if Marquette's losing to Vermont, you're kind of like, dang, I want Marquette to win, and I don't ever want to have to be cheering for a 15 seed, or cheering for a 2 seed to come back against a 15.
Mm-hmm.
I got
should we go to the South or the West, I guess?
Yeah.
Is there more you guys want to talk about out in the Midwest?
Well, I wasn't even going to go that deep in the West, but
oh yeah.
Did you listen to part of my take today where Stanford Steve said that, and I love this bet, and I think I'm going to ride it. If you bet the under in the first half, which I know you love to do, AB, but here's the trick. You got to bet all the unders when the total is 65 or more. So since 2011, I think he said 70. That bet is, it's 17 games over 500 betting the under on games, but it's got to be 65. Utah
I've
State,
been trying
Missouri,
to tell you for years.
Did he say anything about
years.
Before 2 p.m.?
No,
what was that one you sent me yesterday, Braiden?
Yeah, it's like a 65-ish hit rate of games that are under 70. The over-under is like less than 70, and games are before 2 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So
hammering tomorrow.
the Maryland, obviously Maryland, West Virginia, early in the morning, it's like 63 or so. Different gyms early in the
That goes
morning,
against his
college
code.
kids.
Yeah.
Should we get to some can't picture it? It's like who we don't see winning at all. I've got 4.
Yeah, go ahead. You've already stolen a couple of mine as we've gone through here, but go.
Purdue, they ain't winning it.
Yeah.
They're just
Do you
not
know
gonna
Purdue hasn't made a Final Four since 1980, and they are good every year. Can you imagine that?
And like once
sickening.
what happened in that Virginia game a few years ago in the Elite Eight, like once that happened, anyways, Purdue, see ya. Marquette, sorry, see ya. They're not going to win their title. Could they make a run? Sure, they're not winning at all. Nope. Alabama, sorry, I know they're number 1 overall. I know they're awesome, but you know what I can't picture? All of the, because this is going to be like a national news story now. It's been a lot of sports reporters talking about it.
Dude, he has
Alabama
a bodyguard.
Get to the second weekend. Yeah, like it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be too many distractions. Don't see it with Bama. You guys are going to hate this one. I do not picture the Kansas basketball Jayhawks winning the championship this year.
This is supposed to be a positive vibes only pod, AB.
Well, okay, but like I still think they can make a Final Four. I still think they can, make a good run and be a fun March. I'd be betting against history if I said KU is going to win it this year. So I just can't do it.
It's going to take so much to get to a natty.
They just have those games where, and we talked about it when we were talking about the West in general, but they've struggled with really good defenses. Tennessee, Texas, if all it takes is one game where Jalen has 28 and everyone else combines for 18 points, which feels like it happens all the time, and this team's gone before we know it. So I just don't know if I can picture it now. I'll leave that one subject to change because if they win 2 games this weekend in blowout fashion, I'll be all the way back in. But those are the 4 I got. 3 1 seeds, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so I guess just wanted to touch on the West a little bit. I was just looking at national title odds earlier, and 4 of the top 9 teams are in the West with UConn, Gonzaga, KU, UCLA, and then obviously you got 5 top 11 KenPom teams in the same region. I already said 9 of the top 20 defensive teams, according to KenPom in our region. I keep trying to talk myself into it not being as hard as we thought. I mean, it's loaded. It's one of the best regions I've seen, but I still think there's question marks on a lot of the top teams. I mean, you got UCLA who's missing one of their top guys, maybe their best defender. You got Gonzaga who is incredibly hot, but they play in a weak conference. They don't play defense. KU might not be with their coach. I'm not sure what's going on there. UConn, probably not a ton of question marks there. Maybe just a ball handler and a true point guard. So, yeah, I think it's a really good region, but I think there's question marks everywhere there.
Yeah. If I were going with my true heart, which I hate this, but like me and you have talked about this, Beecher, and I'm kind of falling for the Gonzaga thing. I really am. Like I
have a 33-1 ticket on them from a month ago.
Yeah. I kind of just think Gonzaga it's that vibe of last year where everyone's like, this wasn't Self's best team, but they got it done. Like, I can see that being a storyline of like Mark Few wasn't close to one of his best teams, but Gonzaga gets it done. But still, defense, if you go off all the metrics, the history of champions, they just don't fit the criteria. So, not all in on that, on Gonzaga, but here's my heart tells
Here's
me
one for you. Here's one for you guys from our friends from DraftKings. Gonzaga minus 150 to make the Sweet 16. Is that a lock, or do they lose to a tough TCU team without Eddie Lampkin, or an Arizona State team that's going to score 100 tonight?
I think we know TCU's terrifying, so I would probably not put money on that because TCU, they have a gear that they can hit that is very impressive.
And then one more thing about the West. Obviously, I've heard people talk about KU. We wanted the Midwest. We wanted to be in KC, but Vegas wouldn't be terrible. I mean, it's going to be fun out there, obviously. Vegas has some things to do, I've heard, out there. But I'm just picturing a KU, and this is chalk, but a KU, UConn, Gonzaga, UCLA second weekend there in Vegas. I think Vegas would obviously be pumped. Also, UCLA and Gonzaga, both their conference tournaments are there. Gonzaga really showed out for their conference tournament. UConn obviously has a pretty big fan base, so that would be a mix of 4 pretty good programs with a lot of fans. So I think that would be a fun second weekend. It'd be tough to get through. And then I was just saying, I've heard people say like whoever gets through that region they're going to win the national title. Could it be an instance where whoever gets through that region is just worn out?
Could be, but yeah,
I
you
don't
get a
know.
week off. I mean, you get quite a bit of time off, and that's a Saturday night Elite Eight game, so you truly would get a full week. But it's going to be such a grind to get through it. I could see it. I don't know. What do you
Like,
think, AB?
would you see a satisfied UConn if they get to the Final Four? They're obviously a 4
There
seed.
could be some big happy to be here moments between. Well, I think UCLA, KU, and Gonzaga would not be happy to be there. They would all.
I'm not sure UConn would be either.
Yeah,
they've won it enough to where they have the taste. That's like.
And Hurley's a psycho. He'd have them ready, I would think.
But on like the worn out thing, I don't know, because at the end of the day, they're still only playing like 2 games in the regional semis and finals. And I like that argument more with like these Big 12 teams. Every single game was just a grind, and it's like after 3 months of it, they're probably just gassed. But
I guess I'm just thinking of like a Gonzaga to where they'd have to play a really tough TCU team, even Arizona State, and then they'd have to play UCLA. I can also see losing in the second round. AB, we've talked about Boise. Whoever Gonzaga would play, that'd be a tough defensive team, and then you'd have to play a UConn or a KU. Obviously, Gonzaga, they have national title hopes every year, so they wouldn't be satisfied to be there. But it's going to be a lot to get through that region. But I was going to ask you guys, the Big 12 over under and wins is 11.5. Where would you be there? You obviously got some decently high seeds. I mean, you got Baylor and K-State as a 3. You got KU as a 1. You got Texas as a 2. Who else am I missing? Iowa State, CCU are 6s.
I saw that. I want to take the under. I just think KU's got a chance to lose early. I think Baylor we don't trust. I think Iowa State could lose in the first round. Like, it's basically for it to hit, wouldn't it take – I mean, it would take KU – it would take 2 teams making like a pretty decent run, like at least 2 Elite Eight teams, which I guess isn't crazy. But
if say 4 teams make the second weekend, which that might seem like a lot, but you would be hopeful that KU, I know it's going to be tough, but K-State, Baylor, Texas, those 4, that's 8 wins right there.
But even then, like,
they could lose in the first round, and then it's tough to win after that. But
you're going to need like a Final Four team at least, and
you need to get a team to get to the Final Four. I saw it was plus money. I wanted to just, I think AB, you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but just high seeds making a run, and then like maybe like a super high team, even the second weekend, or just a high team maybe making the Final Four, and then potential matchups down the road like Sweet 16, Elite 8. I was kind of looking at Arizona, Bama. We talked about that, and then Houston against Texas in Kansas City would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I can't figure out which high seed I think's making it. I really like. Weirdly, I've like talked myself in a little bit to USC because everyone's talking about Michigan State, and like I could see USC sneaky winning and then beating Marquette, and then all of a sudden they're playing Kentucky or K-State, and then all of a sudden USC's in the Elite Eight. Like Pac-12 always seems to make noise and have a team that's out in like Oregon State a few years ago. So I don't know. I could also see like Kent State making Sweet 16, obviously, as we've talked about, but it's just so hard to predict that.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of went over all mine. Kent State, Auburn, Elite Eight's kind of pricey.
I'm even looking at 8 and 9s. Like I could see a Nick Smith for Arkansas going on a crazy run where he just starts going off. I could see a Kendrick Davis for Memphis where he goes on a run, and we have a Purdue team that we aren't high on. A lot of people aren't high on. And I think their press break is something that's in their head mentally. Like you had Mason Gillis for Purdue after the game talking about how the press break was an issue for them. And so teams are obviously watching for that. I could see Memphis just because it feels like a lot of people have different picks out of the East region, even a Florida Atlantic. So Jordan just typed in and said he has Creighton in the Elite Eight. I don't think that's crazy. That's a team that can easily get hot. They have the talent.
I can't quit Creighton. I just can't. I love them.
I can't see them beating Arizona, but
I think we're all a little scarred from last year. Creighton scaring the living shit out of us in the second round, which is why. But
Well, it
and they
feels
added
like-
some guys.
Like they're good, but it does feel like they got a lot of hype in the offseason and they didn't live up to it at first, and people have just been wanting it to happen more and more and more. And then I don't know. I'm just gonna. We want to make Final Four picks and get out of town.
Yes.
Yeah, unless you guys want to hear my futures that I have, and I want to see if you guys think they're stupid or not.
Rapid fire. Give me your futures.
Okay. Duke Elite 8, 6-1. I like that because Purdue at the top. I could see them. I know you guys thought Final Four was crazy. I could see Elite 8. I have Kentucky Final Four at 12-1. Just that I've been hammering darts at that East region.
You're a sucker for blue bloods.
That East region, dude. And Kentucky they obviously have some good freshmen, but they have some nice upperclassmen too. I have Gonzaga plus 425 to make the Final Four. I also have a ticket on them 33-1 a month ago to win the Natty. I have Arizona at 15-1 to win the Natty. I like that. If they can get out of that South region, I love it. And then for some reason, I think another East region dart would be Marquette plus 450 to make the Final Four. I just think for a 2 seed, that's pretty nice. And the East is just wide open. So those are my futures. Final Four picks. I'll go quickly. I got Arizona, Duke. You guys are going to hate me. Houston.
Duke.
Yeah. Oh, damn it. I was supposed to do that. Arizona, Duke, Houston, and Gonzaga. I'm kind of leaning Marquette. For some reason, I just can't picture it. Duke, I think that's too much of a trendy, like they're hot pick for me. And then I got Arizona and Houston in the title game. I have Arizona winning it all.
Yeah. Hey, AB, what do you got? You have Arizona winning it all. That's what I got winning it all.
This is bad, boys. This is very, very bad.
This is bad. Cancel the futures. Cash out.
That is good.
Final Four. I've got Arizona, Sparty, and Texas and Gonzaga. I know I said Colgate could win, but I don't know. The top half of that, the top half of the Midwest is bananas for me. So it's like whoever came out of the bottom, and I don't like Xavier, and it's like, what are we gonna do? So I got Arizona over Sparty, Texas over Gonzaga. Arizona wins 73-68.
All right. Well, on that, Kate, I've had Arizona winning it all because of my future, but I'm been like I've said this whole time. I've got Arizona, I've got Houston, I've got Gonzaga as well, which that's a bad sign for the Bulldogs that we all love them.
Yes.
And then I've got Marquette as getting in that Final Four just because I can't pick anyone else, and I'm just going to give them the credit. We'll go Arizona over Marquette. We'll go Gonzaga, Arizona final.
Marquette.
Mark Few is not losing to his old guy. What's his face? So I've officially Tommy Lloyd. I've officially picked Gonzaga to win the national title. All right.
Michigan,
let's get the hell out of here.
AB said Michigan State, and I feel like we didn't even flinch, and that's because I can make a case for a lot of teams in the East region. Like I could make I could see Memphis randomly.
We got to get moving, boys. I got one more thing. Kip Patterson of CBS Sports had a championship matchup of KU Arizona, and I'm just picturing how awesome that would be for all three of us. Just picturing, I mean, we'd want to win for KU, but like nice little emotional hedge there. Anyways, I'm going to be straight up with everyone listening. I'm about to poop my pants. So I'm going to get off this podcast, and happy March to everybody. Hopefully you listen at like 10:15 tomorrow morning, and it leads you right into the first game. I can't wait, but I got to get out of here because if we go 5 more minutes, I'm not going to be in a good spot.
What a way to end the pod. This is March. Rock Chalk. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.